I don't think he should be suspended. I think he should be fucking fired. You have a deliberate, like he shoulder checks that guy.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Ryan Tillman Show. Thank you, as always, for subscribing to my channel. If you guys can, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and most importantly, turn on that notification bell. Today, I'm not going to break down any specific police incident, but what I do want to do is talk about this viral moment that we saw last week. The football player scores a touchdown, goes into the tunnel, and the state trooper walks in there, I guess, allegedly to tell them to come out, and he went ahead and shoulder checked the football player. I do want to come out and say I believe he was wrong, but I also believe the internet made this much bigger than it should have been, specifically Don Lemon. Now, I don't like giving Don Lemon any airtime because I don't think he's valuable enough to give him that airtime. But for the sake of this video, I want to talk about how people continue to perpetuate ignorant cycles throughout our history, and he's one of them. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch his interpretation and his breakdown of the incident, and then I'm going to give you guys my opinion on what he's saying. Let's actually get right into it now.
6-3.
Oh.
That is track
Did you see
speed.
that? Now, that last part, if you can just rewind it a little bit, Andy, go to that last part. That last part is, I'm not talking about the touchdown. That didn't piss me off. But we'll get back to that video in a moment. But it was the video of that trooper, in case you did not see it. Let's show it right here. Look at this. Look at this. Department of Public Safety in Texas.
Don Lemon, yes, we saw it. We know what happened. But he's one of those people that's pouring gasoline on a burning fire. It was wrong. I think that the deputy got into his feelings for whatever reason. Maybe somebody peed in his Cheerios. Who knows? I don't know why he was so mad. Maybe he was mad because his team was getting beat. So he shouldn't have done that. I will be the first to come out as a police officer and tell you that, no, he shouldn't have done that. But was this something that had to be national headlines? Was it something that Don Lemon had to pick up? And what you're going to see here in a minute, he makes this a race issue. As a matter of fact, I think in his title of his video on YouTube, he says the racist police officer, which just by watching this, why would you even say that this officer was racist based on just those actions? How do you know anything about this officer? He doesn't. It's just his ignorance. Well, let's just continue to watch some of what he says. And then he actually brings on a former police officer, which I don't know who he is. But we'll see what he has to say, and then maybe I'll agree, maybe I won't. I don't know. Let's watch.
Now, let me tell you, I watched that video from that was the Texas A&M game in South Carolina, and I sat back in my chair and I said, well, are we doing this again like this in 2025 in front of 100,000 people? That trooper did that, a national audience. Are we still doing this? Yes, we are. Because what happened to those South Carolina players, especially that was Nick Harbor, it wasn't just outrageous, obviously unnecessary. It was just a bad look, and I think it's a bad look for law enforcement. I have to be honest. It was a power trip. A man with a badge following these young athletes, black athletes, into a tunnel during a live game just so he could confront them. Now, he's supposed to be the law and order person. And yes, I said followed because I want to get the facts right here, okay? Nick Harbor, I want you to remember this. He's a 19-year-old young man. He's a sophomore, incredible athlete, a star in the making. He just caught this pass, 80-yard touchdown. This wasn't some routine play. This was a statement, the kind of play that electrifies a stadium. Everybody's screaming, right? Even if you're the visiting team. So the momentum of that run sent him barreling into the tunnel, and then I guess his hamstring was hurt. And you could see him limping. The crowd was roaring. He's limping, from the effort.
Okay, before I continue, I want to address something that he said. He said that the state trooper goes in there, he's on a power trip, and it was a bad look for law enforcement. Do I believe that it was a bad look for law enforcement as an entirety? Not necessarily, only because, I think people are smart enough nowadays to recognize that one man's actions doesn't necessarily make the whole professional law enforcement look bad, especially with an incident like this. The second thing that he goes on to say, which I don't agree with, is the fact that he goes on to say young black athletes. Why do you have to throw the race card in there? I don't even think the race card is necessary. Why don't you just stick to this trooper who is having a bad day, shoulder checks? Because now he's making it a race issue. I don't think this had anything to do with the player's race. I think it had to do everything to do with this trooper being upset, mad. Somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Maybe he's mad his team's down. Who knows? But how do you know that this was all based on a race? You just don't. There's going to be others that say, oh, well, you know, society will tell you in the system and blah, 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 blah. No, it's like, stop playing victim. All you're trying to do is get more views and gain more likes because of you insinuating something that doesn't even exist in this specific situation. Let's continue to watch the video.
And then you can see him trying to catch his breath. And then his teammates gather around him. And then what happens next? He doesn't even get a second to compose himself or to walk it off. That state trooper, not stating security, was I don't know what he was. I don't know. He wasn't a trainer. He was a Department of Public Safety trooper, walks into that tunnel, follows these young men, and then cuts between Harbor and his teammates. Now, it is unbelievable. I want to bring in now former police officer Michael Phenome. Michael, thanks for joining. Would you ever behave like that when you're an officer?
I mean, did I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, it's called policing with your ego. I mean, is it right? No. Do I think that I mean, listen, the player, this 19-year-old kid that you described, was where he was supposed to be, doing what he was supposed to be doing. That trooper's conduct was inappropriate, outrageous, but you know, I'm not going to give it a but. It was wrong. That he should be suspended. He certainly.
So I actually agree with the officer. I do believe that it was policing with your ego. You can clearly see by the officer's actions, it was unacceptable. And if you're a police officer watching this, you have to be able to say the same thing. Do I think it was a fireable offense that Don Lemon is going to say he should have been fired here in a minute? I don't believe it's a fireable offense. I mean, there's so many people in other professions that do way worse things and don't even get any near punishment. So do I think there should be some type of correction? Absolutely. I definitely think there is, especially now, though there is one case I do believe that this could be a fireable offense. Let's just say this deputy has a track record of doing ignorant things on duty, doing bad things, making bad decisions. And yeah, maybe this is the straw that breaks the camel's back and it does become a fireable offense. However, if he has no track record of conduct issues and this is just one of the days that he was having a bad day or whatever it may be, it's not a fireable offense, but it definitely is something that should bring punishment. But notice the contrast between what Don Lemon said and this other police officer says. Don Lemon went straight to race and he said this state trooper follows these young black guys into the tunnel, whereas the officer just goes on to say, hey, look, I think he was having an ego trip. Two completely different ideas. And it's, again, Don Lemon, for the sake of his YouTube channel, is trying to get more likes and clicks and views. Unfortunately, I'm giving him airtime, but I think it's a learning moment, which is the only reason why I'm doing it.
Should be prohibited from working those games, which is a privilege. That's an overtime detail. And I think the Texas Department of Public Safety should issue a public apology and distance themselves from that trooper's conduct. Say something to the effect of it's not representative of our officers or our agents. And I think that it's fine time that law enforcement, in an effort to be transparent, starts letting the public know how it is that they are disciplining their officers when they engage in such public displays of inappropriate and aggressive conduct.
Well, okay, well, we're going to disagree this time for one of the first.
Nothing to disagree with the officer on that. I mean, I think it's valid. I don't think, we do, and I've said this time and time again before, we have an expectation as officers to make sure that we hold ourselves with high regard, above reproach. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect, but when you do fall short, we do deserve punishment, but not fireable punishment as Don Lemon is going to refer to right now.
I don't think he should be suspended. I think he should be fucking fired, because you're supposed to be the person there who's keeping the order in the stadium, and then you have a deliberate, like he shoulder checks that guy, right? He's just like, get the fuck out of here. That's deliberate contact. And that makes me like, when you see, and you can see his body language, it was intentional. And then he turns and points at them like they're a kid, like, get the fuck out of here. Who the fuck do you think you are? Like he's laying down the law, like he's policing them. It's like, what can you imagine how that guy treats people when there were cameras rolling? Can you imagine how he treats people? So I think he should be fired. And people are not saying, they're just saying it's an ego. And then there is a response from the Department of Public Safety. I think it's some fucking racist bullshit is what I think. I grew up in Louisiana. I went SEC school, LSU. We played the Texas Aggies. But I know that shit. When you see someone do that, get the fuck out of here, you're like, oh, here we go again. Here's a report, Michael, and then we'll talk about it.
Before we even watch the report, how are you going to go out there and say that this is racist? Now, again, I'm not telling you that racism doesn't exist. The thing with Don Lemon, though, that makes me upset is he doesn't know anything about this officer. Zero. So for him to go out there and say that this was racist, all he's doing is perpetuating this idea that systematic racism is still alive. And because this is a white state trooper and because these are black players, it must be racist. I'll be the first person to tell you that if something is racist, it's racist. But stop insinuating this and adding to this victim mindset. I just think, call it for wrong. If it's wrong and the state trooper was having an ego trip, call it for that. But stop throwing this racist jargon out there, because why? Because as a black guy right here, I hate when people do it because it makes it seem like I'm a victim all the time, and if something happens, it's got to be racist. No. But again, he wants his likes and he wants his clicks. I'm almost done with this video. We're not going to watch the full. You can go watch the full video if you want. I don't recommend you do, but anyways, let's continue to watch a little bit more of this. And
At 7:13, the Texas Department of Public Safety is reviewing footage of an interaction between a state trooper and a college football player caught on camera. It happened at Saturday's matchup between Texas A&M and South Carolina. You can see the DPS trooper bump into Gamecocks wide receiver Nick Harbor and others. The heated exchange quickly spread on social media. It even caught the attention of NBA superstar LeBron James, who called out the trooper on X, saying he believed the nudge was premeditated and that the trooper should be suspended. In a statement, DPS writes, quote,
here's what's crazy is I don't agree with a lot of LeBron James ever says, especially as it relates to issues like this. But even he believes he should be suspended, not fired. The other contrast, or the other comparison I want to make is, think about all the journalists that have done damage to people's careers, to people's livelihoods, all because they were chasing a story that wasn't even factual. And so they defamed a whole bunch of people, but yet they don't even get fired because of whatever reason. So he's want to sit here and demand that this deputy and the state trooper will lose his job. But there's so many journalists that have done much worse stuff because they're chasing headlines and doing a lot of unethical and immoral stuff. But yet you don't see him coming out saying they should be fired. Don't get me wrong, I think Don Lemon was fired too. Maybe that's why he's salty. I think he was fired. Look that up.
Trooper involved was sent home from the game. Our Office of Inspector General is also aware of the incident and will be further looking into the matter. End quote.
I don't think that's enough. It wasn't just LeBron James. Well, Stephen A. Smith said something, but whatever. This is Ryan Clark. I want you to hear Ryan Clark.
What happened at the Texas A&M South Carolina football game is unacceptable for an officer who is there to protect everyone in the stadium, to walk toward those young players with that level of aggression, that level of intention, that level of purpose, and that purpose being nothing for good is something that just can't happen. And now, if you are these young men's parents, this is worst case scenario for you. This is something you've coached your kids through. You've told them how to behave. You told them what to say. You've told them how to look. And you've told them all of these things just to stay alive. And so now in this situation, someone who is in that stadium to protect them is the aggressor. And here's my biggest problem with the whole thing. There was 100,000 people in the stands. There were two entire football teams on the field, and there were
All right, I'm going to end it right there. You guys watch the rest of the interview if you want. It just continues to be an echo chamber of stuff. I just, again, I will be the first person. If you've been following me for any amount of time, I'll call out bad cops if I see it. If cops mess up, I will be one of the first people to call it out. I'll be able to call out ignorant stuff. But stop adding racial tension to stuff that shouldn't even necessarily be one of those topics. We don't know anything about the trooper. Again, I go back. Could he be racist? He absolutely could be racist. But how am I supposed to know that? We don't. We don't. And many people, they like to say what racism is, but they don't even really truly understand what the definition of racism is, so they just label everything as racist. And what's the issue with this? What's the problem? The problem is this, and I'm gonna wrap it up on this. If we say that everything is racist, then when are people going to take us serious when something really does happen that is racist, when all we do is cry wolf? Therefore, they're not going to take us serious because everybody believes that we only say everything. Everybody's only going to believe that we call everything as racist, and that's why they're not going to take us serious. It's like the boy that cried wolf. I truly believe the more and more we keep adding the fuel to the fire and saying that all these things are racist, people aren't going to take us serious, and we're not going to be able to understand when something that truly is racist happens because nobody's going to give us the attention. Don Lemon should be ashamed of himself when it comes to this. Stop just making videos for the sake of trying to get likes and clicks and views. Bring some nuance to it. At least say, you know what, I would even be more respected to say, you know what, maybe they should look into him. If he has a track record to this, maybe if there is some racial undertones, maybe they should investigate it, but don't come out right away and say this is racist, some racist BS, and say the dude should be fired. You don't know anything about this guy. Anyways, I appreciate you guys as always for subscribing to my channel. Do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you can, turn on those notification bells so that way you get access to the latest and greatest videos we bring your way. Thanks again, God bless, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.